Well, hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, it's Monday night. We're not in our studio.
Yeah. We are on a trip visiting some family. So
Mhm.
we are,
For 4th of July.
yep, for 4th of July. So we're currently in a guest room, but
Yeah.
it's pretty.
But it's nice, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, but we do
Look
travel.
at that teal wall behind
Look at that.
us.
But we brought our microphones, we brought our mixer, we brought Chip.
We're missing Dale.
I know.
He's somewhere around.
He's around. This is week 1 of our weekly appeal to get Chip and Dale in the game on this show.
Wait, we should make that a thing.
It literally is now. I've said it. It is a thing. Week 1 of our weekly appeal
Hashtag
to
make
get
Chip and Dale a thing.
Chip and Dale into the game. Yes, microphone setup and everything.
I
So we had to. We generally don't. We try not to take breaks. We do occasionally, like for the birth of our child.
Yeah.
Um,
those sorts of
but
things.
but yeah. So it's Monday night. It's
I
time.
think we took a break, by the way, on like Christmas Day too.
Yeah,
Like,
it was
I
like
think Christmas was a Monday.
it was like
We were
Christmas. Yeah, and
but
that
the
was
New Year's Day we were live.
Yeah.
Which was like the next Monday.
Yeah. So yeah, we're excited. So no, it's great. This is what we do. So it's Monday. On Mondays we talk Lorcana. We're very excited. If you're here for the first time, thanks for joining us. This is our weekly show where we talk all things Lorcana. If you're here live on any of the any platform, we're live on several of them. Feel free to ask questions throughout the show in the chat. We look forward to interacting with you all, and you can ask questions of our guests, and we will get to some of them. So let's talk through what we're doing this evening.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited. I mean, I am not a competitive player, but I have completely nerded out today on the judge's guide that came out. And so we're going to talk through that with the creator of the guide on the show tonight. I have so many questions for him. I found the guide so fascinating to see how judges think about the work that they do and how they apparently YouTube is hiding our channel, so we're working on that. But how they think through the process and kind of the back end, it definitely demystified a lot of kind of the unknown to me. So I'm really excited to dive into this tonight.
Yeah, somebody said YouTube's hiding our channel. I have no idea what that means. So we'll figure that out. Maybe I'll figure it out when we get our guest in. So yeah, so we're going to talk with the creator of the guide, Albert, who is the head Lorcana judge for PPG. He's been the head judge for the Lorcana challenges so far. Then we're going to talk for about 45 minutes with Albert, 45, 50 minutes. And then we're going to say goodbye to Albert and bring in some judges from Atlanta and Chicago to talk about their impressions of this guide, what it's like judging a Lorcana challenge. Again, they're happy to take any of your questions. We're going to have a couple rounds of trivia tonight. We're going to have trivia at the very end from our Lorcana Illumiteer trivia master, Carolyn. And then we're going to do a second round of trivia, or a first round of trivia with Albert. And we're going to give away some promos that Albert has provided from Disney Lorcana challenges. And so I just want to set everybody up for that. The way we're going to do that is we're going to ask questions from the guide. And the first person to answer in the chat gets the promos. And so, or gets one each. We have 3 different questions. So I want you to set up for that for 2 reasons. One, if you're watching on a slight delay, you may want to watch live so that you can see those questions as they pop up and have a chance in the chat of answering them. And then number 2, if you don't have the guide up, you may want to pull it up to have it as a reference. And
it is an open book quiz.
It is an open book quiz, and the guide, the link to the guide is available in our YouTube show notes. I don't think it made it to the other platforms. If you're watching on another platform, make sure you have access to that, or jump on YouTube and pull that up, and so you'll have a chance to win.
Get your Control F ready.
Get your Control F ready, or just read it rapidly, real quick,
exactly.
or just know it. Or guess. But anyway, with that, I feel like we should invite in our guest. That's what everybody's here for, not to hear us talk. So let's welcome. No, they're not here for us. That's why we have guests. This Week in Ink, they're here to listen to Jonty and Brandon. Here they come for other people. So, all right. So, I'd like to welcome in our first guest here, Albert Berdellans, who's the head Lorcana judge for PPG. Albert, welcome.
Hey, so happy to be here. Really excited.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no, this is super exciting. Like we've known about, well, I mean, the judges who've worked with you at the challenges have read this guide before, but we got it for the first time. I think 4 or 5 days ago, you sent us a copy for Aaron and I to look through, and so we've been waiting for this episode to talk with you about it because it's really great.
It is so. I sat on the porch, like at this lovely house we're at, and read your guide. Like, just that's what I do on a Sunday afternoon is read a judge's guide for fun. It was actually really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I guess the first question is, let's just start by asking, what is this guide and why did you decide to spend so much time working on it and writing it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. First of all, thank you both so much for having me. I'm really glad that we finally were able to set this up and get through all the approvals and red tape to make this happen. And I really am looking forward to discussing all these things with you. So I want to remind you, Liam, of where we first met, which was at Gen Con as the game was first being released. And I think everyone who attended that event understood that logistics and staff management are a major part of whether an event is fun and whether you get the experience that you want out of it. And so that immediately got me to thinking about Lorcana events that would happen in the future. And that really started the journey of, all right, what's going to happen when there's an organized play program? Who's going to manage it? Who's going to staff it? What will the judges be like? What can players expect? What is the experience going to be? And that sent me down this rabbit hole of really a research project of every um, judge guide, judge protocol manual, tournament rule guide, infraction procedure guide, what every game calls them something different for every trading card game pretty much that has ever existed. And I went all the way back to the early 90s to some of the first Magic guides. And it is fascinating to see the rules that existed then and what has survived and what hasn't in the TCG world. And then also, I went down all the way to the way that chess works. Chess, their judges are called arbiters. And professional sports leagues, other types of board games, Scrabble. I mean, I went pretty deep. It took me the better part of a year, and that gave me a very interesting theoretical foundation for what I thought would do well in the Lorcana space. So then, when the official rules came out, both the tournament rules, the play correction guideline, and all the other rules, and we can get deeper into that in a second. Once that came out, there was, to me, kind of an operational gap between how those rules should be applied in a practical sense and what they said in the documents. Now, I think that Ravensburger, frankly, has done a great job improving those documents and getting them more clear, more easily understandable, and they're constantly, having to balance between detail and precision and making it accessible. And so I really give them a lot of credit for the progress that they have made. And so this judge guide that I have written is simply kind of an operational manual of how to be a judge in a very practical sense at an event, how to do a judge call, basically how to perform the actual duties that a judge will be asked to do during an event.
Yeah, it's really great. So the research that went into it, it's so funny because I never would have guessed that you spent, um, you know, years at this point going back, reading all of these different manuals and all that. I would have thought you would have just jammed out. But once you say it, like it shows because like if anybody who's looked at this already knows how with the history that you bring in and all the different the way you talk about the game and just the mentality of being a judge, like I don't know, the research is evident.
Yeah, I was gonna add, like, normally when I read something like this, I'm like, yeah, introduction, like, let me get to the meat and potatoes of this. But if you haven't read the guide, read the introduction, which is where Albert goes and talks about like the history of why we call them judges and how all of that came about in his like back end research. And that to me like, to be honest, it was like reading a book. It like got me hooked, and I was like, okay, now I want to read like actually what's going on today. So definitely everybody read the intro because it's really fascinating if you're interested in like the history of TCGs and how we got to where we are. So
Yeah.
great work, Albert.
Yeah. Now, so
Thank you. It looks like I have a beginnings of a recruitment spiel for a new judge.
yeah, it's true. So, you mentioned you saw a need for this, and also that you looked at a whole bunch of different other guides from other TCGs, and you decided to create this one for Lorcana. And you have some of this in the manual as well. What makes Lorcana different than perhaps other TCGs that are out there, and why is there a necessity to create a guide with the Lorcana lens, like for the Lorcana community?
Right. It's a great question. Uh, Lorcana is very unique in the following way. Very few games inherit decades of intellectual property from the beginning, from the moment that they are released. And so they have a very broad appeal for a very wide consumer base. I mean, just at the outset, a game that attracts multiple generations of people is rare. I mean, that's almost unheard of on its own. Um, my first TCG that I ever played was Pokemon, and I, my mom and I played that, and that was a very special thing. You know, we went to Toys R Us, to the Pokemon League, and that was relatively rare. But in Lorcana, we see not only the opportunity for a multi-generational game, but a hugely accessible game that appeals more widely across demographics than other games might be able to do. And what that means is that it has to have an accessibility, a simplicity that allows nearly anyone, whether they've played other trading card games before or not, to just walk in and pick it up relatively quickly. And there should be a judging philosophy that matches that. I talk a lot in the guide about the dichotomy between education and enforcement that a judge
Mhm.
constantly has to balance. And that is not an easy thing. You know, a school teacher in a classroom has to keep the class under control, but also make sure they learn. And any school teacher can tell you that those are very difficult things to do at the same time. And so, you know, heroes like that are kind of the role model of what you want a judge to be at these events.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next one.
No, next one down.
Wait, no, up.
Ah.
There.
Sorry, you're bringing this up. Casual enforcement. Yeah, I'm bringing this up because throughout, I want to highlight to people where they, these thoughts appear in the guide and some of the graphics you've created to help people understand. No, I think that's a great thought. I mean, it is. I have a lot of the same thoughts about Lorcana. That's why all of us are here. That's why a lot of us play. It's multi-generational appeal. It's bringing brand new people into TCGs who have never touched a TCG, maybe even a game before, like a board game or anything else. These are folks who are walking through Disneyland or Target and they're grabbing a pack of cards, and then they're in Lorcana. Yeah, it does make it interesting. So talking about judging philosophy, one of the things I like about this guide, not only that it does it give you rules and all that, but you talked about the philosophy of judging, and almost this mindset that you have to maintain, because I think a lot of times when we think about judges, and to be honest, I was guilty of this as an experienced TCG player until just a few months ago, talking to and then seeing how you and Googly and Joe and some of the other judges approached it. I was guilty of thinking of judges as people who just knew the rules, right? These are folks who just are rules experts, and their function is simply to, when there's a question,
Like communicate the rules,
yeah. respond, deal with disputes, and that's it. And it's so much more than that. It's I don't know, right? Like it's not about that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a piece of it.
Yeah, so the interesting thing, another interesting thing about Lorcana as a game is that it has this unbelievable combination of accessibility, but also depth and complexity. It's like snowboarding. I'm sorry, it's like skiing. It's really easy to learn, but it's very difficult to master. And there's just all this depth to it. So can someone just pick up two starter decks and play? Yeah, it's pretty easy to just do that. But as far as taking it all the way to the end of that pathway and being a high level competitive player, there is an enormous amount of nuance in both the rules, in the complexity of the game design, the game engine, the resource system. The most interesting thing, if you ask pro players, how do you tell a very good player from a professional player? Do you know what they say? They say what they choose to ink. That is the
Fascinating.
difference. And that, because those are enormously important decisions that cause you to make decisions several steps ahead of time,
Mhm.
and anticipate and understand how the matchup is going to evolve over multiple turns. And that is a very difficult, complex thought process that really takes a lot of practice and experience. So what's interesting about dealing with Lorcana as a game, from the game design standpoint, is that it has this unique combination of accessibility and complexity that I
Mhm.
have rarely seen in any other game.
It's like simplistically complex or simplistically complex. It's just it's amazing the depth you can get into it. And I love how you're talking about like how pro players are thinking multiple turns ahead. It's very similar, and I think everybody watching this probably knows it's like chess.
Mm.
Like when I'm trying to, teach my dad who doesn't play Lorcana, but he did grow up playing chess. Like it is very similar to like a chess match where it is very strategic, and you do need to kind of think down the road. So
Yeah, plan out multiple turns in advance. Aaron, I know you have like a bunch of questions you want to ask.
yeah.
I do want to set up. I do want to
Mhm.
mention one other thing about judging because I really love. There's something that you really set up here throughout the manual, especially in the beginning. Let me change the view here, and that is that judging is selfless and it also requires sacrifice. It's not something that everybody's cut out to do, even people who are perhaps incredibly skilled at rules, lawyering, and who understand the game very well. It's something that you have to be the right person for and something that you have to choose to sacrifice to do. And I love this quote here. I'll leave it up for a minute. What are your thoughts on that?
I really wanted to lay a foundation, a theoretical foundation for what a judge does and why. And I thought that that was really important for people to understand, is here are the duties that a judge has here, because there's the rules and then there's the why. And it's not always clear because rules documents need to be very precise. Every word needs to be chosen very carefully. Every phrase has to be chiseled down to its essential elements. You can't really get into why and how and think about
Mhm.
this and value that. Um, this is much more of a philosophy type document. It's much more of a mandate, and it gives reasoning for why certain rules are the way they are. Why
Mhm.
can't um, a judge also play in a tournament? There are
Mhm.
games that allow that. Well, it's because a judge needs to be viewed as impartial and not have any vested interest in the outcomes of their rulings. So them participating in the event, that wouldn't work. So they have to intentionally not participate, even if they love the game, which I would venture to say all the judges, at least the ones I've worked with, love the game. And
Mhm.
so asking them not to play to instead help the game work, help the event work and the tournament run smoothly, that's a sacrifice. And I think that that sacrifice is something that needs to be pointed out because it's not for everyone.
Well, and it's not just a sacrifice for playing and not choosing not to play, but it's as you point out in the document, for not having favorites, for not having people to root for. Sometimes it's maybe not even socializing the same way you would at a tournament, so as not to show favoritism. So there's so much that goes into having that veneer of professionalism.
I wanted to ask actually specifically about that, Albert, because you have a whole section that talks about fraternization. And I think as we are still a relatively small community, as the game continues to grow, we are a tight knit group. You are very often going to know as a judge the people who are playing, and you may even be friends with some of the people you are playing. So that might scare some folks off from being a judge of like, oh, do I have to give up my friends to be able to be a judge? How have you balanced that in your judging career by like the players personally? Do you just kind of step back from that match and say, I can't judge this match? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so we have a whole system for something called recusals, which is, hey, listen, I know this person. This person's a friend of mine. I deal with this person in some other capacity. I really shouldn't be the one judging, taking this judge call. I need to switch off with someone else. And we assign our judge teams in pairs specifically to facilitate that.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is that, this isn't, and I explained this in the judge manual, this is not as big of a deal in a casual setting, at a league night. No one's really going to make a big deal about it. But when you get to the point where you are, the head judge of a challenge event, there are just certain things that don't work anymore. Going to have a beer with the champion after the event is probably not the right optics that you're looking for. It just doesn't look good, even if you guys are otherwise friends. So there are some unfortunate realities that are there, and some judges, and I always caution judges against this. And I'm actually one of your subsequent guests. I think you should ask him about this. He's probably watching. You should ask him. Some people try to straddle the line between player and judge, and I was, a high level player myself. I had a pretty strong competitive showing, and I was also a judge afterwards. It's a difficult thing to balance both because they do have some overlap, but really they're unique skills. But the real problem with trying to straddle that line is the mindset, the mentality. The best players have an absolutely, sorry to say it, brutally cutthroat competitive mentality. They hate losing. They really want to win. That doesn't mean that they're not sportsmanlike, because they don't take out their losses on others. They just feel it really hard on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to be common among all of the players. And that mentality does not work for a judge. You don't have an opponent. Your opponent is the chaos of a tournament not running well. You don't get to pick sides about which one you want to win or not win based on, whatever. It just isn't the same kind of mindset. And a lot of people have difficulty switching those. And that is the biggest challenge of trying to, play both sides.
Yeah.
I think it's, if you put it into kind of like sports metaphors, I'm gonna maybe cause a lot of people to not like you. Liam's a Patriots fan.
Yeah.
And so, I think
well, nobody's perfect.
Bill Belichick isn't a great football player, you know what I mean? But he's a great coach. And so, you have a little bit of those who can't teach, a little bit of that mentality. It's a completely different skill set, judging and being a competitive player. One doesn't necessarily make a better of the other.
Well, they probably overlap to a degree. I mean, it's not to say you can't be one, you can't be skilled at both.
Well, no,
but
that's what I'm saying is like, you don't have to be.
Right. And so actually that tees up something else that I was thinking when reading this manual is, to be a good judge, not only after reading the manual and thinking about the mindset and thinking about, how you carry yourself and thinking about understanding the philosophy behind human nature and why as a judge you might, as a human being, be tempted to react this way to certain situations, especially when it's people like judging is a skill way beyond just knowing the rules, and it requires practice, and it requires to be a good judge, right? It requires practice, and it requires honing that skill. And so, so to your point, you can be both, but you should think about them as separate, I don't know, separate skill sets to a degree. I don't know. What do you think, Albert?
I think that, well, this is a really good time to, I think, talk about how I recruit a judge team, which I think would be very interesting. A lot of people, I encourage everyone who wants to be a judge to apply, and there's a link I believe in the description here if you'd like to apply to be a judge at a Lorcana Challenge event. It's extremely competitive. For Atlanta alone, we had over 1,000 applications, and we had between 50 and 60 judge slots. So extremely competitive. But I encourage anyone who's interested to apply, even if you've never judged a TCG event and you don't think that you have a lot of experience. We frankly have taught a lot of judges from scratch, and we don't mind doing that. A lot of what we're looking for has to do with getting a variety of experiences and perspectives and skill levels, so that we can essentially be reflective of the community that we are
Mhm.
serving. So we have first time judges. We have extremely experienced judges who have been judging various events for 20 years. Um, we have those who have other skills that are relevant, whether it's language. One of our judges is also an RN. I mean, there's just a bunch of things that you might not think are relevant. We have
Mhm.
several school teachers. We have people who are skilled in conflict resolution. We have many, actually, several veterans. In various capacities from the armed forces that are on the judge staff,
Mhm.
and really geographic regions as well. I don't want too many people from one specific city or state. I don't want 10 people from a game store, the same
Mhm.
game store, on the judge staff, even if that's a local game store. It just doesn't, there's a lot that goes into how we select and put together a judge team that requires a wider variety of skills than other games might demand. And there's a place for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking down. I'm fixing the link in the description so people can get there. So
It's okay. It's okay. No
um,
worries.
so Albert, one thing I did want to talk through as well for folks who might be newer to TCGs, newer to competitive um, gaming, can you talk us through? You've done it a little bit already, but talk us through what your role is as a judge, and maybe how a player is going to interact with the judges when they arrive at one of these competitive tournaments.
Right. So I actually do this during the player meeting right before each Lorcana Challenge event. I explain that judges are here to help, that if you have any need for a judge, ask for one, whether it's just, I have a question, I'm uncomfortable with something my opponent is doing, I'm not sure what is supposed to be going on, I need help. Calling a judge is free. And I actually ask every single person in the hall to raise their hand and say judge all at once, just to kind of break the seal, so that, okay, everyone has now done it once. I know that everyone knows how.
Mhm.
So I think that's actually a really important ritual that we do, because I think it destigmatizes calling a judge. A lot of times people think that I'll just say it. There were controversies in other games recently where people likened calling a judge to calling the police,
Mm.
and that's not what it is. Judges are here to help you. They are a resource. It's a important resource for the game, and it's one that should be freely available without stigma or connotation attached to it. So I don't think anyone should ever feel bad about calling a judge. And if we've worked very hard to try to avoid that stigma creeping in to this game like it did into others. Calling a judge is never a bad thing.
yeah, it is. No, I agree with you, because at the end of the day, we want every player to leave each game feeling like it was a fair game, without any questions about the conduct of the game, about anything they may have been unsure about.
Mhm.
I know, you know, there always come moments, especially when you have newer players playing experienced players who are perhaps deferring to that player's experience and judgment when it comes to a rule.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Um,
yeah,
you always have these moments where sometimes a player's like, I, I'm not quite sure, but I guess I trust you, and they have that moment where they want to defer to that player, but perhaps the right thing to do, and the right thing to do is call a judge over just to get that assurance, so that when you leave, there's not that little bit of doubt,
Of
in
were
your
they telling
mind.
me the truth,
Yeah,
or yeah.
yeah. You just want to leave the
yeah.
game feeling like if you won, you won fairly, and if you lost, you lost fairly, and that
True.
there's just no ambiguity. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's a major principle from PPG. And George and Anna, the CEO and COO of PPG, have really taken a big stand on this, and I agree with them 100%. Their big philosophy is that the outcome of a game or a match should be determined by the gameplay to the
Mhm.
maximum extent possible. Easy to say, hard to do. Because from a judge perspective, that means not only do you have to make sure that you are enforcing the rules and making sure that gameplay is ruling the day and determining the outcome of the matches, but you also have to be sure that your intervention as a judge does not unduly affect the outcome
Mhm.
of the game or the match on its own. And so
Fascinating.
it's about initiative, but also restraint. And so that's definitely been a bit of a adjustment for me to kind of get used to that principle being at the forefront. But PPG's been really leaders on that from the beginning.
Fascinating. I do. So it's an interesting comment here because I do want to address this with the socialization thing. Try to get some of our viewer questions. Asking about judges being separated from the players lead to more distrust. I don't think it's about like separating yourself from the community and not socializing with players, whether it's on social media, etc. But it's about understanding and reflecting on how your interactions will reflect your perception of your relationships with certain players and then acting accordingly. For example, I know that every time that I interact with judges who I might know in, Lorcana challenges, when they're on a particular day, like the way we interact is very different than we might, if we were hanging out somewhere else because it's public, they're judging. And, it's not to say you can't say hi, you can't, be friends, but it's like a handshake. It's, talking. It's not, there are levels of friendliness that we don't go to at an official competition because of that perception issue.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's kind of rings, so I talk about this a lot in the judge manual, and the nuance I think would help answer this question. But broadly speaking, it's about optics, really, most importantly. You don't want there to be an obvious perception of how judges are interacting with players. During the event, while judges are in uniform, they're very much expected to perform a certain way and to act a certain way. It's important because they are performing a role. I talk a lot about the duty that a judge is taking on, and this might lead to I think our first trivia question. What do you think?
Oh, interesting.
Oh, look at you with the segue, Albert.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's go to the first trivia question. So
just reiterating, the answers to the trivia questions can be found in the guide, and it is open book.
And feel free to guess. So we're going to give away one of these promos to the person who answers this next trivia question first in the chat.
Wait, do you want Albert? Which promo are we going to give away first?
I don't know. I was going to pick one randomly. One randomly.
Great.
Do you want to see? You want me to pick it now? I'm shuffling them.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm shuffling them. I'm going to shuffle them this way, and I'm not going to look. How about this one?
Is it Flotsam Jetsam?
Yep, that's a Flotsam and Jetsam.
All right.
Okay, cool.
All right. So first trivia question is from the manual. A judge has a duty to be 4 things. What is the third thing on the list? And if you don't have the manual, you feel free to guess. Like you can probably guess some of these.
Does it have to be the exact?
Oh yeah, it has to be number 3
from the manual.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. There's a list. There's 3 things. It's a bulleted list. Tell me number 3.
There's 4 things.
4 things.
The third one.
The third one. The third one on the list. I mean, I guess it's not necessarily. They're not in order, so I guess it's not the third thing. It's just the third thing on the list. Do we want to
get back to the conversation while people are guessing? Because people might need to look in the manual.
That's true.
Nope.
And
someone got it.
And we got it.
Yeah. Be impartial. Joe P just slightly behind. Impartial is that. Yep. So yeah, if you're not watching live, make sure you speed up.
Well, Moogie, we'll get together afterwards.
Yeah, Moogie, send us a note. And if you win one, you're not eligible for the rest. So yeah. We'll do another one here shortly. We have 2 more questions to go. So you wanted to ask a question about cheating.
I did. I feel like the word cheating sometimes gets thrown around a little bit more often than it might need to. So you talk a lot about this in the guide about what you call true cheating. Can you talk about like what your experience with true cheating has been as a judge, how frequently you see it, how you deal with it when it actually occurs, and yeah, I'll stop talking.
Interesting. Okay, great question. So under the Lorcana rules, and this is something that's decently unique to Lorcana, cheating in Lorcana requires intent. So there needs to be clear and convincing evidence. The standard we use is a preponderance of the evidence. So in other words, it's more likely than not that the person purposely broke a rule in order to gain some advantage. So there's a lot there. They had to have been attempting to gain an advantage. They must have been purposely breaking a rule. And you have to have some sort of evidentiary basis for why you make that ruling and determination. Pretty high bar. Pretty high
Mhm.
bar. Short of catching someone red-handed, um, difficult to establish. I always say, kind of tongue in cheek, we only ever catch the dumb ones, you know,
Mhm.
and that's it's kind of funny, but and somewhat true. But the truth is, I think cheating is a self-punishing measure. I talk about this in the judge manual why you shouldn't go like super hunting for cheating. Cheaters inevitably reach a place where they cannot cheat anymore, and they are overmatched at that point, and they end up just getting crushed. So
Mhm.
cheating usually punishes itself, frankly.
Mhm.
Um, but without getting too in the weeds on all the things we do to detect and prevent cheating, and it's quite a bit. We have very experienced players and some reformed cheaters, not on the judge staff, but in an advisory capacity, who essentially lay out every trick in the book, and it'll be difficult to imagine things we haven't seen in any other game. I've been judging TCGs for better part of 20 years, and I've seen some crazy things. um, Cheaters never prosper. I mean, that's the truth. That is the truth. And so, sharp players, super competitive players are going to catch cheaters across from them like 100% of the time. And we have really sharp judges who are also watching. So just don't do it. Please don't put us in a position where your tournament is going to end prematurely and you're going to leave ashamed, because it will not turn out well for you. And certainly don't do it at Lorcana challenges, because there's a very vigilant group watching.
Yeah.
Can you What are your recommendations for people who might have been accused of cheating and have a
Well,
judge call happen?
I
well,
see. I see.
I guess the other piece of it is like, what percentage of misplays that we either see on camera or that we've experienced in tournaments do you think are a result of true cheating versus people making a mistake or being
Mhm.
overtired or whatever? If that makes sense. I guess that's kind of.
Yeah, yeah. Our research indicates that somewhere around 1% of gameplay errors are done intentionally.
Mhm.
That's been the research over a large scale. Um, a lot of people do this thing, while they're watching the live streams and on the internet anyway. People do this thing where they go on the internet and talk about things that they have absolutely no idea about at all, really authoritatively,
Yeah, yeah,
and it seems like the less they know, the more confident they are in their foolishness. And people will see someone make an honest mistake, something that seems like a really egregious honest mistake, and they won't take into account that they're on camera, they're nervous, they're focused on 100 other things. They're doing things that they are not asked to do in a normal game. They're out of their comfort zone. All of that dramatically increases the likelihood that they will either make a mistake or not catch a mistake that their opponent has made.
Mhm.
So, the idea that someone would, intentionally cheat on camera in a way that is so obvious that every person watching can just obviously see it, it is ludicrous. And to what end? I mean, why would anybody do that? I mean, it
yeah.
make more sense to just lose on camera and take that
Mhm.
loss and make up for it by cheating in all your other matches than to do it
Mhm.
on camera where everyone can see it? Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So, typical internet commentary. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. No, I just think it's worth bringing up because you do devote time to it in the manual. This idea of true cheating and you make that point that it's rare, and I think there are some people in Lorcana, whether they're competitive players or judges or just observers, who come to the game with the idea that like watching through this lens that colors everything as cheating, and they're primed
Mhm.
to see a mistake as intentional, most of the time, when the reality is that that's not the case. And so I think peeling that back and trying to get rid of that lens is useful. I don't know.
Yeah. It's also harder to cheat in Lorcana, which I think is a point that gets glossed over a lot. Cheating in Lorcana has less upside because of the resource system. It's not like other games where you can, you know, stack their deck with either all resources or no resources. There's a completely different kind of system at play that allows more a variety to be useful and more playable hands. So really the cheating element is just there's less upside to it, and it's more difficult in other than in other games. And I think people overlook that, and they're just applying a lens from other TCGs to this one, which is, as you can tell, a giant pet peeve of mine.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Gosh, we could have this conversation all night, but let's get away. Let's do our second trivia question here. I know people are waiting for it. So here's what I'm going to do. I know there's some lag in different platforms, do things differently. A little bit of a curveball here. I've written down a number between 1 and 5. And whichever person, it's this number of right answer. So it might not be number 1, it might not be number 2, but between 1 and 5, whoever gets that number correct answer is going to win the prize. And I'll tell you when.
Oh, so if it's like the third person.
Yeah. Hypothetically, if my number is 3, then it's the third person.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay,
so, and I have it here, so I can't change it.
In the spirit of judging, we are trying to be as fair as possible.
Yeah. So here's the question. Here it comes. If you make a mistake as a judge, the guide provides 8 steps to follow. What is step number 1?
You're
not guessing the numbers. That's not how this works. Yeah, it is interesting. Interesting. Okay, so
people are getting it.
Whether or not we've seen it.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, it is. This is also teaching me which platforms are faster than other platforms, but yeah, it is interesting because I do like that you devote time in here to making a mistake as a judge, because there are times we're human, we're fallible, and so there will be times when you make an error.
There we
and
go.
No, that's not the right. Oh, yep, there it is. Okay,
No,
yep. All right, so stay calm is the right answer. I think this was number 4. Yeah, number 4 was my number here. You probably can't see it. It's on there. But all right, so Alok 1, you are the winner. Send us a note after this on any of the social media platforms, Discord, whatever. Tell us that it's you, and we'll get you the next promo.
Let's pick the card. Pick the card. Oh, there it is.
Oh, Dragonfire.
Ooh,
nice.
So Albert, can we, in the spirit of this question, can you kind of talk us through as a judge? You don't have to go through. I'm not going to be like, Albert, what are the full 8 steps? But can you kind of talk us through, or give us an example of a time that you might have made a mistake as a judge and how you went about rectifying that?
Yeah, this was a good one. So there was one time I was pretty young. This was probably 10 years ago. And I thought I had made a mistake. The rules had just gotten updated in a particular game, and I thought I made a mistake, and so I just sprung into action and did the opposite thing of what I was doing before in a panic. And it turns out I actually had the right ruling the first time, and I basically ruined a game by doing the wrong thing that I thought was the right thing, which was the opposite of the thing I was doing. Anyway,
what the actual right
total disaster, and I felt terrible about it. And the head judge had to come, untangle the entire thing. It was really bad, and it was extremely embarrassing. It was a major learning experience, and it's exactly the type of thing that you can do when you thought you made a mistake. You're embarrassed about it. There's not a culture that making mistakes are okay. And so you feel like you need to jump into damage control mode on your own, and that was a major learning experience for me that I hope no one else has to experience. And we try very hard to create a culture of camaraderie, that we're here to help each other, and that judges are human. Making a mistake is okay. Just don't make a worse one.
So, and that's where that was the day rule number 1 was invented.
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. Like, so, in the Army, obviously, we study leadership a lot, and we talk about this a lot because you're a manager in your own organization. There's a leadership. I call him scholar, I guess, a professional speaker named Simon Sinek, and we watch his stuff a lot. And one of the things he talks about is creating an environment where people feel safe, because when you feel safe, you're not going to react in ways to protect yourself at the expense of the organization. You're looking out for if you don't feel safe, you're looking out for yourself first, and then looking out for the organization second. And that's exactly what you're talking about here. It's creating an environment where judges, feel a sense of camaraderie, but also feel safe, so that they're able to come
Yeah.
forward and express their opinions and their mistakes, and learn from them and get better. Yeah,
Exactly right.
I like that a lot.
You want to do question number 3?
Yeah, let's knock out this third trivia question. I've written down another number between 1 and 5.
We are not guessing the number.
Yeah.
We're guessing the answer.
And so we have the last promo to give out. I think this is a Scrooge. All right, everybody get ready. Give you all a second to pull up your manuals. All right. So between 1 and 5, but not number, the head judge's power to deviate from established rules and policies is limited to significant and blank circumstances. You should only deviate from the established rules in rare cases. It has to be a significant case and a blank case. Brandon, that's not how this works. You can't just name numbers. Because obviously the established rules are, the most important thing. But sometimes as a judge, there are scenarios where you have to.
So yeah, and while people are guessing, Albert, do you have kind of an example of how did this come about in your guide? Why did this in your life become important enough that you decided to put it in the
No,
guide?
so this is actually in the rules. It's in the play correction guidelines. I think tournament rule. None of that's right. Well, someone's right, but it's not specific. But this is in the rules, but they just don't explain what they mean. It says significant and blank circumstances, but then it doesn't say what those are. And that's where the judge manual comes in, is explaining that it is both things. So the answer is exceptional, as we've seen, but it has to be both. But what does that mean? And I go into detail about in the judge manual about what those circumstances might be. And this is a good time for me to say, I always tell my judges that I care about two things. I care about running a tournament on time, and I care about running it by the book. A lot of head judges take this mandate and this power as to mean that they can do whatever they want if they feel like it, and I'm very much against that. I'm very much our authority derives from the rules, so we stick to the rules. That's my philosophy.
I love it. The number was 2, by the way, and Stephen Gettle was the second person to get the answer, coming from YouTube. So Stephen, Scrooge, coming your way.
There we go.
Yeah. So those are our 3 promos from you. Well, so Albert, we're gonna jump over. We're gonna say goodbye to you in a second, and bring in a couple other judges to talk to them about their thoughts on the guide. Take some more questions from the audience. What closing thoughts do you have for the audience? What takeaways do you have about the guide, and then perhaps advice for anybody who might want to become one of your judges in the future?
Right. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Anyone who's interested in judging for one of the North American Lorcana challenges, the slots are mostly full, but the application is in the YouTube description. You could also get to it at ppgeventmanagement.com. You can find the judge manual on lorcanajudges.com. There's a redirect. And I just want to reiterate, the purpose of us releasing, or of me releasing this manual, was in the interest of transparency, because I believe that competitors deserve to know exactly the methodology that's used to judge these events, because they're high stakes, because players put so much into it, and because there can be a dispute about how maybe judges should operate. I believe that competitors deserve to know in a transparent manner exactly the methodology we're using. So that's why we did this, and I really thank you for the opportunity to come on here and talk about it.
No, I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, I do have one question. If folks are approved, do they need to travel themselves to the events? So should people be thinking about that when they apply?
Yes. So we try to respond to applications on a rolling basis. So as soon as possible, there is a qualification process, which I will not describe, and hopefully none of the other judges will either, because they signed a very scary non-disclosure agreement about it. But assuming that you qualify, there is, it's a paid position. We don't believe in, forced unpaid labor, and there is a travel stipend, so all of that is covered. So it's a pretty cushy gig if you can get to it.
I love it.
Well, yeah, I'm so grateful, Albert, for you coming on the show, for writing the manual and publishing it, and for your belief in transparency and being impartial. So thank you for what you're doing for the community.
Yeah, and for Lorcana in general, I mean, the success of the first 2 Lorcana challenges and the ones coming up will be, frankly, largely due to your efforts and the rest of the PPG team. So thank you for everything you've done for Lorcana.
Thank you all for so much for what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
We hope
All
you
right.
have a great
Take care.
night.
See you next time.
All right, see you, Albert.
Bye.
That was great. Albert's amazing. And I've interacted with him at several events that he's been judging, both Lorcana challenges and then Miami, TCG Con, another PPG event that he ran for Lorcana. And every time he's the paragon of professionalism when he's on duty.
He just seems like a lovely human being, and just like is really cares about the work that he's doing,
about the game, about the community,
and and making this like fair and impartial. So I'm super excited to talk to some of his fellow judges.
Yeah. So super excited. So we're going to welcome 2 folks in here, and I'm going to bring them in the order that they popped into the green room. So,
oh wait, I have a question for one of them when they come on camera.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, first, so really excited to welcome Sarah, aka Lorcana librarian, and experienced Lorcana player and judge at TCG.
I'm gonna say, Sarah, you are getting close to your 5th appearance on Let's Talk Lorcana.
Already?
I feel like I've seen you like 3 times in the last month.
Yeah.
I hope it's soon. Yes.
Oh, yeah. We're gonna have pins for 5-time appearances.
Yeah,
we're working on those.
I'm ready.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome.
Hold on one second. I'm very thirsty, so I gotta.
It's
the reaction I
here, of course, when I'm out and about. Yes.
Oh my,
the reaction I wanted.
William has a matching mug.
A matching Rainbow Dash mug. Yes. Oh my goodness.
4th appearance, you both can drink from your Rainbow.
Yeah, maybe we'll have 5-time appearance mugs. That's another idea. All right. And judge at Lorcana Challenge Chicago or Atlanta. Did you go to Chicago, Googly?
I played in Chicago.
Yes. Oh, you played in Chicago. That's right.
But we don't have to talk about that.
Okay.
Wait, so
it's Joe.
Googly, speaking of Atlanta, I feel like if you weren't staying in the same hotel we were in, there was like a missed opportunity, because we got into the elevator at our hotel in Atlanta, and above like the warning sign in the elevator were 2 googly eyes.
I saw. Yeah, I think you tweeted about it. Yeah,
I did.
Been here.
I 100% did.
It was not me.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you all both for being here. Both of you, I think the community knows as, experienced judges, professional judges, and you all have had a chance to read this manual like way before all of us, because I understand this was distributed to you before these Lorcana challenges. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on it? And did it, because I have plenty of questions to ask about your experiences and thoughts on judging. And if you're watching, please, if you have any questions about the game, like rules questions or anything about judging, feel free to ask. But I guess I want to start by asking, like, what are your thoughts on the manual, and did it help you all in your preparation for these challenges?
I'll defer to Joe.
Okay. I was going to let you go. Yeah, for sure. I'm known for being like the rules guy, I guess. It's kind of the thing I've cultivated, but I actually don't have a whole lot of experience judging in person. Like I've done a little bit here and there locally, but before Atlanta, really that was the first thing that I've like judged. So having a manual that I could refer to and look at that was all about that side of things was super helpful.
For myself, it was my first very large event as well. I've done like smaller events, but looking at what we had available from officially prior to getting this manual, I was like, yeah, I had the hang of it. But what Albert put together, really the in between the lines stuff that is not told outright to you, but comes with like his depth and breadth of knowledge. It was very, very beneficial.
Yeah. I talk too much. So I was going to defer to you this time.
No, I have like situational questions that I wanted to ask.
Oh, well, let me get to Eliza's questions first here, because I think this is a fun one, and then we'll get to your situational questions. And Eliza asked, like, why judge, and what's your favorite thing about being a Lorcana judge?
Sarah can go first this time.
For me, when I started playing Lorcana, that was like the end goal, was to become a judge, official, big time judge. And so for me, that was kind of, my favorite thing was like achieving that goal that I had worked so hard to get to. And the team, working with that team, is so rewarding, just because everyone is so dedicated to the game. It really like fuels your passion also for the game, and your competitive edge that you're going to go home and have, so that takeaway is what was my favorite.
I think my favorite part is just knowing all the stuff. I just really like knowing the stuff. That's the thing that I like doing, which obviously I could do without being a judge, but it just kind of makes it feel a little more official, I guess. Getting the shirt and everything.
Like being able to look inside the clock and see how all the gears work and things are ticking, and how the clock runs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you feel like, as a competitor, because you judged one and were a competitor another, did your judging experience help you in being like learning the game more as a competitor? Okay.
No.
Oh no.
I mean, like in general, yes. In my experience at Chicago, very much not.
But in overall, yes, you get kind of like a more in-depth look at the game, and it really does, I feel like, make you a better player.
Yeah, I think actually while I was at Atlanta, I got a chance to talk to Kyle, the rules manager, about some things, and that was really interesting, getting that opportunity to kind of chat with him about some stuff and fuss at him about some choices they made and complain about some things.
Fuss at him for some choices. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good segue. What is a rule that confused you, or that maybe has caused some confusion for you?
I have a good one. I have two. I have two good ones.
Oh.
Okay, so I guess my first one is Big Grandma Tala. When she came out, and we did not have the complete rules yet, I and many other people who are busy in the rules Discord all thought that she would like see herself going to the discard, or not the discard, excuse me, going to the inkwell, if she got sent by Let It Go or whatever, because of the way that Merlin Goat works, and he sees himself get banished. So why wouldn't Grandma Tala see herself go to the inkwell? But it does not work that way, and we learned that, and we were very confused, but we got over it. And then the other one was Diablo and Let It Go, because of the way the comprehensive rules document says that you do you do a game state check every time an effect finishes. So I interpreted that to be every effect individually on a card, every clause on a card, and that is not the case. That is not how it works. So I thought Diablo would get banished before you would draw
the card,
and then that is also not how that works either. But luckily, that didn't affect anything important. It was just me looking a little bit silly in the Discord, which is fine.
That's so I sort of followed that. I think I did.
Sorry, I'm used to talking to people who are very experienced with all this.
No, I like it's interesting, but it just shows to me like kind of the nuance, like the way that you judges, think about the game and the nuance you have that perhaps some of us don't, in the way we think about things. But I don't know. Sarah, do you have an answer?
An answer?
Oh, no.
Was there any specific card that you found confusing, or a rule that you have come across that you found?
It's only been like 20 minutes since somebody asked the question. Sorry.
Yeah. I was like, which one? Yeah, no. For me, it was Fairy Godmother, just trying to explain to somebody that she didn't get that effect. That it's when she quests that she gives the effect to other folks. It wasn't confusing for me, but it was very confusing for a lot of people.
She does get it too.
Oh no, see? I'm so confused. Fairy godmother. There it is.
It usually doesn't matter because she's exerted anyway, so she can't challenge anything.
Because she quests,
But she does get it.
Okay.
Because it just says all characters.
If we were at home, I'd bring up these cards and have people, showing. So I'm kind of interested, and I think this comes up because of a story you told, Sarah, about Chicago. Like, I'm interested in any like stories that stand out from you, moments from the first two challenges, whether they're you interacting with the community or anything not related to Captain Hook that stands out from you to you for the first couple challenges. Like stories you want to tell. I don't know. Because I loved your story about interacting with a young player for the first time and kind of that I don't know, that amazing impression you made on that player in Chicago.
I think for myself too, I won't tell that story again. You guys have to go back and watch the episode. But
good plug.
A lot of people would kind of, you're in this official shirt, and they would kind of approach you like, oh, can I ask you a question? And then, you're there for customer service. So obviously you're like, yeah, of course. And, and they're just like, oh, thank you. And then the rest of the time they're coming to you with questions easily. And then, and they're like, oh, I was curious about this other thing. How does this work? And so creating that connection with people was big, and being kind of like a sounding board for some of their questions, where it was like, at first it was like apprehensive, but then they got more comfortable.
Yeah. Joe, I'm sorry, do you have a thought? You were having let it go debates in the chat. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think I might have said let it go twice instead of let the storm rage on, but that's fine. They got it. They figured it out.
The moment's passed.
Some sort of frozen situation happening.
Yeah, it was something. It's the same song, whatever.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, you were referring to the song title in general and all cards that fall under that song title.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's just let it go.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. For me, I just appreciated. So the thing you said about customer service too is funny because at the Atlanta challenge, I was there, like I was running super behind trying to get to the commentating booth and no clue where I was going. And finally found like the registration table. And I started asking all of these questions like, hey, how should I get to somebody standing there, like, how should I get a staff badge? Where do I go? XYZ, whatever. And this person, calmly explained to me, hey, yeah, so you probably need to go over there and talk to this person. Do this, do that, do this, do this. Nothing related to Lorcana rules. And I realized as I was walking away that I was talking to a judge and not like a PPG staff member, like who is a tournament organizer, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I was like, oh man, but that person knew all of the things and was representing PPG in the tournament in that moment, even though it was nowhere near a rules question. Anyway, struck a chord with me.
We are there
much
for
our
you.
Job on day one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing.
A little confused. Yeah, that especially with MomoCon going on, there was a lot.
Yeah.
I had to disappoint so many MomoCon people. They were like, "Where do I go to get this?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I have no idea."
I'm not your customer service. Can you talk a little bit, either one of you, about we talked with Albert a little bit, but I really think it's important to like demystify the kind of role of a judge, because it can be, you hear the word judge, that can be a really scary thing for maybe a newer tournament player. So can you talk about like, beyond customer service, like how you interact with folks at the tournament? If someone does a judge call, what can they kind of expect from the judge when they come over to the table, and kind of how that process works?
Pretty much the first thing that a judge is going to do when they roll up is going to just be like, "What's going on, guys?" They're not going to come in and with like finger wagging, like, "Rrr." It's like, "What's that? What do you need? What's the question?" Because I mean, my assumption is generally it's going to be like, "Am I allowed to like banish this popsicle?" And I'll just be like, "Sure, yes, you absolutely are." And then if it turns into something like more complicated than that, or a little bit like like combative, I guess, then we kind of go from there. But the assumption, I think, is that it's just going to be something easy and light, and that's how we kind of try to approach it. We're just there to figure it out.
There to help them play their game. You know what I mean? Like, we're not there to punish somebody. We're there to help, like, facilitate and, you know, be a mediator.
Just get them back to playing as you know, faithfully to the game state as it's supposed to be as possible.
Yeah, somebody pointing out, you know, Crystal saying, you know, that this was her first real tournament in Chicago, and her round one random deck check was a little scary because it was the first time something like that had happened, and she wasn't used to it. Yeah.
I'm actually, I'm going to run. I just heard our daughter not having fun downstairs. So it was great to see y'all.
Oh, no.
Great to see everybody in the
Hi,
chat.
Erin.
I'll let Liam wrap it up, but I'm going to run, make sure she's doing okay. She's with family. She's just not.
Yeah, she's not like, you know.
She's not
I figured.
You know. No, so you know, I'm going to tell the story because you didn't, Sarah, because when Crystal talked about the day one deck check being a little scary, I just love the story of you deck checking a very young competitor. I think 7, you said.
It's all, you know, guessing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. About that age, probably competing in her first, you know, big tournament. There's all these, you know, tables around and table numbers and judges and everything else. And having somebody come over and ask for your deck can be a really intimidating thing. You know, you're paranoid, you may have done something wrong. And the way that you treated her and called her, like, I think you said when you gave her your deck back, here's your deck competitor or something like that. And just, it sounds like that made her day. And I love that.
Yeah, I mean, because we use a random number generator to generate the tables and things. So it really is like, you know, we're not out to get like a specific person or whatnot. And so, yeah, when it came up and I get closer to the table and I realize that it's a little one, I was like, oh, man. But yeah, you know, I did like just treat her as if she were an adult, you know, and she was a competitor there to compete. So I treated her as such. So yeah, when I first approached her, you know, she had the big eyes, and the person who she was competing with, her competitor was like, oh, you know, it's an average thing that happens. You're just going to give them your deck. They'll, you know, take it backstage and check it and bring it back. And, you know, we'll just hang out and wait for them. It'll be fine. And then when I came back, you know, and I was like, oh, thank you. And thanks for allowing me to, you know, do this, and good luck, competitor. And she was like, okay, yeah, thank you. You know, and then you could tell that she kind of like had the wind in her sails, that she was there to do this, you know, competition and was there to compete. And so, you know, I treat everyone just as if they were equal on the competitive field. Everyone's there to do their best, you know.
Yeah. Joe asks, what are you all looking for in deck checks?
Oh, okay. So you're going to submit a deck list. We're going to match it up, make sure it's consistent, make sure the cards are legal for play, they're not marked in any way, the sleeves are in good condition. Am I forgetting anything, Joe?
No, it sounded about right. You know, making sure that also that the count is right, like not just that it matches the list, but also that the list is legal.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
No, like 8 Diablos or anything.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, 9 be prepared. 13 popsicles.
That's scary.
Yeah, right. So something somebody else actually asked us and suggested we ask you all. What does day 2 of a competition looks like when you roll in? Perhaps you make the top cut. It's your first time making the top cut. You're rolling in as part of the top 64. What does that process look like?
For a competitor?
Yeah.
It's kind of the same as day 1 a little bit, but on a smaller scale right at the start. So you have a top cut meeting, just like you had a player meeting. And Albert will talk you through everything, assuming it's DLC. For the last, okay, I can't speak necessarily to Chicago because I definitely did not make top cut. But in Atlanta, we did a deck check-in for all of the top cut. So everybody had to resubmit a deck list, which was double checked against their old deck list, and then we did a whole deck check on every single competitor in the top cut. And then every time you finished a match, you would give your deck back to the judges. And the goal was to have the decks waiting for you at your spot when you got to your table each round, but I don't think we quite managed that. That was
We did.
okay. Well, I was on the stream table, so that wasn't my job.
Yeah, no, for Chicago, yeah, we definitely, because I was part of, you know, getting those out
Awesome.
on the tables and whatnot. So we definitely got them out for competitors. Yeah.
Cool.
Because
Okay.
I heard Albert say he likes to start on time, and I was making sure we all were starting on time.
That's it. We Atlanta was the trial run, and Chicago we started nailing things down.
There you go. Exactly. We learned. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
funny.
Eliza, that's it. It's just to prevent anybody from being able to change the deck around just because it's top cut is higher stakes. That's basically it.
Well, the other thing, I think that the sleeves, I was at a PPG tournament in Houston, and, you know, even if you bring in fresh sleeves to a tournament over the course of, you know, a day, you could, like, a sleeve could get bent or somehow get dinged. Like, you don't even realize it. And you go into day two or at a top cut, and they take a look and they're like, hey, you need to switch out this one sleeve. And you're like, oh crud, you know. So having extra sleeves definitely helpful as well.
For sure, which is something I forgot to bring to Chicago, so I was stressed out the whole time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no.
Just gingerly with your
right.
shuffling.
The most careful smush shuffle.
Right. We're gonna go into trivia here in a second. Before we do, I guess I would ask, you know, what advice do you all have for anybody looking to get involved in judging? And is this something that you would recommend people pursue if they're passionate about the rules, the game, and even just being an ambassador for Lorcana?
I highly recommend it. Yeah, I thought I wanted to be a competitor in some of the DLCs, but I don't. I want to judge across the board now that I've done it. And I think if you want to get into it, get involved locally as much as you can in terms of like judging local events and getting that kind of experience under your belt is a huge, huge way to get started.
Yeah, I feel the same way about judging versus playing. The only reason that I ended up playing in Chicago was because I wanted the shiny cardboard, and I did not know that I was going to get it at Atlanta. So I already had all my travel and accommodations and stuff booked, and I could not change them in order to judge. So I stuck with what I had decided.
Now you have priceless knowledge of both sides of the coin of being in the competitor seat. And yeah.
That's true.
All the way down at the bottom tables.
No shame in that, you know, it happens to the best of us.
It was so bad.
You just gotta go and have fun.
That's right.
You know, I remember you just have fun with the challengers. One of my favorite stories. This is not related to judging at all, but playing in competitions. At Atlanta, right? I ran into Cameron, Lorcana curator, and I said, Cameron, what decks are you what deck are you playing? What'd you bring? And he said, Steel. And I said, Steel and he said, Steel. And I'm like, are you serious? He was like, yep, I'm competing with this just because I can. And I was like, that's amazing. And later on I asked him, you know, how'd it go? And he said, it went fine. Like it went about as well as I expected, but I did manage to play a Gantu and get that on the board. So, you know, points to me. And I was like, that's, you know, play your game, you know.
I believe his deck was called Mr. Steal Your Girl. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
I think so. Yep.
Mr. Steal Your Girl. So probably, you know, didn't do as well as other people, but I would argue is probably the only person yet in the world who has ever taken a monocolor deck to a Disney Lorcana challenge, which is something, right?
Probably the only person who's ever played a Gantu at a challenge as well.
Yeah.
And maybe ever.
Yep.
Perhaps ever. All right. We do need to get to trivia here because we're running close to this week in ink time.
Don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, we don't want to get in trouble. It's happened before. I've gotten scolded. So we are going to bring in our resident quizmaster here at the Lumiteers. Let's play the reel. All right. There we go. Carolyn, hey, welcome to the stream.
Yeah, nailed it.
For everybody who is watching, perhaps for the first time, Carolyn is our quiz master here at the Illuminateers. Not only do we run weekly trivia games here on stream and make guests uncomfortable by asking them very hard trivia questions that they struggle to respond to in front of all of you, but we also play weekly trivia games in our Discord server where Carolyn runs all sorts of fun games along with our other admin Fergus, who runs Guess This Card and some other fun stuff. So anyway, Carolyn, welcome.
Yes.
So
thank you
you've
so
prepared
much.
something special just for this evening. What have you got for us?
I sure did. So this evening, Liam got some replies from our guests from today about their most troublesome cards as judges. And so our trivia questions this evening are themed around some of these cards. Not the rulings necessarily, but the trivia cards are regarding these films or these moments in films. Also,
well,
I have to shout out our first monthly trivia winner in the Discord because he's here in the chat. Shout out to Chappie. We will be rewarding you later in Discord. Fergus and I just have to figure that out later. So yeah, he's our games winner for the month of June.
That's awesome. Yeah, Chappie. Chappie of Sketching Lorcana. Before we get to the first question, I have two things I need to do. One, Joe, thank you so much for the super chat. It really helps a lot. This equipment is not cheap, and I have to pay for a lot of subscriptions. So that is super, super helpful. Second, you all will be playing. I'm running low on playmats, so we're actually going to send a channel sticker to somebody random from the chat. So it's Opus Dopus, who is a little behind on the trivia, but he's going to have a chance to win a channel sticker if you all get 4 out of 5 trivia questions right. So there's something on the line.
Got it. No stress.
Yeah, I was going to say, no pressure.
Right. You ready for the first slide, Carolyn?
Yes, go ahead.
All right.
Alrighty. So, Thebes has been a particularly troublesome card as of late. But what is the first monster that Hercules defeats after arriving in Thebes in the film?
The Hydra. I have no idea. Oh, nice.
It is the Hydra.
I knew he beat the Hydra in the movie.
Yes, it is a little bit easy on purpose because you think it's a trick question, but it's not.
Nailed it.
Excellent.
Wow, coming right
I'm
along.
shocked.
Coming right along. All right.
I'll take it.
When Ursula is convincing Ariel to sign her contract, what 3 things does she remind Ariel that she will keep to entice Eric, even without her voice?
Her hair.
You're close.
She's got her looks.
Uh-huh.
Her pretty face.
Yes.
And not to underestimate her body language.
The importance of body language. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Liam.
Acting it out for us. I love it.
Nailed it.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, we won't make that into a short on YouTube.
I make no promises.
I don't know how to cut it into a video, but I'm gonna.
People always say
happen.
like, we need to clip that, and I have no idea how they do it. It's like magic to me. So.
Oh no, that's my sarcasm. Like I do know how. I am going to click it. It's going to happen. Sorry,
Okay.
not sorry.
All right. Question number 3. We talked about this card earlier. Googly expressed his particular frustration with this one. But what pop singer covered Let It Go over the credits of Frozen?
Ariana Grande. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's the other one. It's one of the other ones.
There are many other ones.
The other ones.
No, you know what I mean. One of the other Disney ones.
Well, Ariana Grande was never a Disney kid. She was Nickelodeon.
You know what? That's fair.
Oh, man.
It's
one of the Disney ones. They're better.
You are correct. It is one of
Demi
the
Lovato.
There you go. Well done.
I knew it.
Nice.
You didn't even need help from chat. Look at you.
Okay. Did
Yes,
you? Was that from
yes.
memory?
I know that because the Adina Menzel version is far better.
Adele Manzine did
Shade.
crush it. Yeah, that's true.
All
right,
and
that's
Demi's
impressive.
version actually has a few lyrics changed.
Oh, I've never listened to it that closely.
It's I think it's quite good. Yes. Anyway,
Interesting.
moving on.
You've not needed chat's help once.
Yeah, you guys haven't needed chat at all. I'm very impressed.
Alan Tudyk.
We'll see. I'm sorry.
Alan Tudyk.
He said Alan
I
Tudyk.
guess we can just move on because that's the answer.
What was the question?
The question was, what frequent Disney voice actor did the sound work for Tuk Tuk?
I'm sorry.
No, well done.
This is
Unfair
advantage.
this one too. All right. That was 4 out of 5. The sticker is
Yay!
in route.
And, our last question.
Come on, let's go for 5 out of 5.
Question 5. All
Which
right.
is
Googly, do you have an answer
speaking of-
before the question's asked? Googly, do you have an answer?
No,
I
not
do
this
not.
one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so speaking of voice actors, Verna Felton is a Disney legend who voiced the fairy godmother. What other Disney fairy does she voice?
Merryweather?
It's got to be one of those 3, right?
Flora? Fauna?
Fauna.
Okay,
None
well,
of the.
pick one.
Dang
You
it.
gotta pick one?
I need a singular guess.
I'm going Flora and I'm sticking with it.
There you go.
It is Flora. Well done.
Wow.
5 for 5.
5 out of 5.
Wow. Was there anything behind that floor guess other than I need to pick 1 out of 3, so I may as well just pick.
It was one of my very favorite movies growing up. Like Sleeping Beauty is my jam. Yeah.
Oh,
So I was
man.
just trying to like mentally go through their voice lines and like place them together. Just because I don't know the actors as well as Caroline does, but I was just like, yeah, it's got to be.
Wow. That was super impressive. That was awesome.
They call me the lore keeper at my LGS whenever they have like a Disney question. They're like, Sarah, lore keeper, what was Beast's prince name? Or whatever random Disney question. So
Oh,
I'm here for you.
So
We-
this is a trivia team I need to remember when we have like a Masters tournament at some point. We need to bring
Yes.
these 2 back.
But we've done something fun before where we had Jonty was there for another reason, but we had Jonty in the green room and we did a very hard trivia round, and Jonty was the phone a friend. And so when the guest said phone a friend, we brought in Jonty as a surprise. We're gonna have to set that up with you all at some point.
One
You
of
can be
two of you, yeah.
the phone a friend for the super challenging.
Only for very
answers.
specific questions.
Alan Tudyk related questions.
Alan Tudyk related questions.
Right.
That'll be the bit.
I was gonna say, are you a Firefly fan? Because
Of course I am a Firefly.
I was gonna say that would
Yeah.
make sense.
Who's not a Firefly fan?
Exactly.
And anyway, okay. Well, that was Carolyn. Thank you. That was amazing. And probably
that
will
was
result
good.
in several shorts and clips. Anyway, okay. Well, that was fun. All right, we have about 8 minutes left before I get yelled at. So I guess let's go around the horn and just how can people follow you all, and any closing thoughts on tonight's judging discussion. And Sarah, I guess we'll start with you.
You can find me mostly on Instagram at Lorcana Librarian. I'm on Twitter, barely. I'm not even going to mention it. Forget it. It's like, who cares? I don't even like my handle there. It's a whole drama. But yeah, and excited to be a judge. So what do I have? Comments on judging program? Albert, I just want to say something about Albert. When I originally thought we were going to be on at the same time, I was a little freaked out because he is just on point and very professional and just such a like stand-up guy that I was kind of like, oh no, I can't be like goofy and ridiculous. But one thing that I noticed about him, and I'm just gonna toot his horn for a bit, is he's very much like Walt Disney. Because Walt Disney could take you and put you exactly where you belonged. And it might not have been a job that you had before that you knew you were going to excel at, but he knew exactly where to put you. And we were having a conversation where, we're going over like training things and stuff like that. And I was with another teammate, and he even said like, I knew you guys were going to be good for like this job. Like, I just know like where to put people. And I was like, you do. And I was thinking like, he really is just like has that same kind of vibe and mentality that working for him, you feel like he's very on his game. He's very on top of it, but he's also, he's very approachable and has that same kind of Walt Disney vibe. I hate to say it, it sounds like very sappy and ridiculous, but like he's what's up. So if you get a chance and you apply and be on the judge team, like it's like it's phenomenal. I just can't speak enough about like how good of a team he has and how good he is at getting people where they need to be. It's been a great experience, and seeing him put the guide together and putting it out there and just makes sense. This tracks, with what I've seen. So I'm excited to see that this is where Lorcana's hands are, where they had their hands in there. And it's just like, I'm glad to see that partnership happening. Yeah, I'm just tripping over my words because I'm just like, oh, it's so great. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
That's amazing. Anyway, sorry, Joe, I'll send it over to you. Yeah.
Googly Glimmers is me. I'm Googly Glimmers everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I do not have a TikTok because what would I even do? And I do have I have a new project that I'm gonna talk about. My lorelicense.com with my little quizzes that I've made. If you are thinking about becoming a judge, there's 2 quizzes up there right now. Number 1 is just the basics, anything that's in the quick start guide. And then number 2 is abilities, tests you on abilities. So anything like triggered abilities or static abilities, that kind of stuff, all stuff from the comprehensive rules document. So if you are interested in testing yourself, seeing how well you know the rules, which is only one part of being a judge, but it is an important part.
It is.
Check out lorelicense.com and take one of the quizzes or both of them for a spin. I think only like 3 or 4 people out of about 200 have gotten 20 out of 20 on the abilities quiz so far. So,
all right.
I was gonna say my best score was like 50.
And it's a 20 question quiz, but there are more than 20 questions. So if you take it twice, you might not get the same questions again.
Brandon says that makes he's a judge. He got 100% right.
Was that when there were only 5 questions, Brandon?
It might be. Carolyn, how can people follow you and what you're doing?
Absolutely. I'm on Twitter at LorcanaBell. I'm on Instagram at lorcana.bell. I am also the community admin for the Illumiteers, so you can find me on Discord running games pretty much every day, alternating with Fergus. I'm also the community admin and one of the team leads for Love to Lore. Along with Sarah, we are a community for marginalized players of Lorcana. So we have a Discord server as well as social media on all the platforms pretty much, where you can come and engage with the game in a judgment, harassment free zone, which is pretty great. We're up to almost 150 members, which is pretty wild. And we're pretty excited to be able to foster this space for the people who need it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And we'll put links to all these places in the show notes. Give me just like 30 minutes and I'll make sure the links aren't broken because I understand one of them is right now. But no, thank you all for being here. I think it's really, closing thoughts from me. I think it's really important that people understand, like, that we demystify judging and judges and getting to see, the faces behind, the faces behind the judge shirts. I don't know, getting to interact with you all and like, learning about you and who you are, whatever. It makes, participating in some of these big high level events, I think a little less intimidating. And I think it makes people a lot more likely to be willing to call a judge when they have scenarios that they're, unsure about. So thank you all for everything you all do for the Lorcana community, Sarah, Joe, and Carolyn for the community that you help foster. And can't thank you enough for being here. If you're still watching the show, get ready to go watch This Week in Ink. It's starting up here soon. And if you're here for the first time, we do the show every single week at 7 o'clock till about 8, sometimes as late as 8:30. And if you're watching on any platform other than YouTube, head over there, hit subscribe. We put out videos occasionally and do other Lorcana related stuff. So thank you all for being